it away.
All right, thanks so much, Ellen. So I'm excited to be here and share a resource that I have started using this last year. So if you have questions, definitely type it in the chat box. I've got my two monitors going so I can look at your questions and look at what I'm presenting. And on that note, if you do have, two monitors, then lucky you. I would love for you guys to get some hands-on practice with this. So, if you minimize me and you follow, I'll let you know when, it's kind of your turn to give it a go. So this, this session is practical ways to use Flippity in the classroom, because I know that we are constantly surrounded by great tech tools. And I know Rachel presented this morning, I think, about your ed tech toolbox, right? How do you choose the tools to use? And so I hope that this would be a helpful tool in your toolbox, not just to use technology for the sake of technology, but technology for the sake of learning. So I'm obviously going to come at this with an ESL perspective, but really it's just as applicable for those of you in ABE GED. So let's get started. I'm going to be using a little bit of a PowerPoint and then a little bit of just the website. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you an overview of what exactly is Flippity. So some of you might have heard about it before, and maybe you're like Ellen and say, I have no idea what this is. I'll give you a couple demonstrations on what this looks like and what it could look like in what sort of context, whether you're online or in person, small groups, whole class. And then as we're doing that, hopefully we'll have some time to do some hands-on practice. And again, depending on the time, maybe even share some of the examples that you create. And if you don't get to create anything today and you do end up having questions, consider this an ongoing conversation where you can, play around with it on your own. You can also email me, ask for, help. I'm not an expert. I just want to share my experience and why I found it really helpful. So what is Flippity? Besides having a really fun name to say, it is free editable spreadsheet-based activities. So when I've given a presentation similar to this before, people said, oh, so do I have the activities already there? No, it's not like, like a Kahoot where something is already inserted. You can create your own or you can use an old one. You have to actually create the activity. So it is a tool. It works with a Google account, but you don't need to have a Google account or even use a spreadsheet. So if the idea of a spreadsheet is really intimidating to you, not a problem. This is easy for you to use regardless. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the Flippity website. It's literally just flippity.net. And, if I was in the classroom with you guys, I would say, hey, don't do it yet. So I know I said this is going to be interactive. So, but let me show you just a little bit and then you can kind of explore on your own. So you can see there are lots of different kinds of activities. Again, these are templates that you then create on your own. And I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like. But for now, I just want to explain what this looks like. So there are lots of different activities, from flashcards to quiz shows, name picker, matching game, all sorts of different things. You can see a couple of tabs. There is featured, e-learning recommendations, and skip the spreadsheets. Each of these activities has a demo, instructions, and a template. And again, I'm going to walk you through what this looks like. But it's really nice because it will walk you through the whole process. So as I explain this and you say, I can't possibly remember all this, that's okay. You'll be able to play around with it on your own. So it'll say the activity name, a brief clip, demo, instructions, and template. There are also specific ones that are recommended for e-learning. So as Ellen mentioned earlier, we have been doing some online classes and some face-to-face classes at HCC. And so maybe you're still offering online courses, maybe you're doing it in person. There are ways you can use this in whichever environment you're in. So there are some that are really recommended for online learning. And there are some that are really good for students to use on their own. Flashcards, for example, things that will help you as a teacher. And there are things that are not really good for online learning. You can do a word search, crossword puzzle, word scramble. Those things are great for in the classroom, not so great for online. They really need to be printed or, UB and have their own answer key there. So not the most helpful for that. Now, as I mentioned, there's also a skip the spreadsheet section right here. And so for this, if you say, I don't want to do a spreadsheet, why are you even talking about spreadsheets? I don't know if I have a Google account, or I know I definitely don't. There is a way where you can just add the information here and then see it. And then you kind of create either a name picker, font game, all sorts of different things. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with this. So I'm going to show you just a couple of examples. Like I said, there are lots of different activities. I've used the quiz show, the flashcards, name picker, scavenger hunt. Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. So let me just give you an example. So I have used this. It is the board game. I have used this online with my students. So again, as we are thinking about these activities, why I really like Flippity is because it's a lot of stuff that I would be planning anyway, but in a really easy way to do it, instead of trying to figure out, wait, how do I, present this? How do I do that? And so that's what I like about it. And I always kind of think about what is the environment and in which that I'm using this, and what's the best tool for it. So in this particular case, I have personalized this so that I have some questions. This was from, I taught beginning students, and we talked about, it was a unit on family. And so what I did in this case, these examples are part of the presentation. Yes, so I have a PowerPoint that actually links these examples in there as well. So what I did was divided my students. It was a small group of students online, about 10 students, and I divided them into teams. We're still in all one breakout room, or in one room, no breakout rooms here. This was early in the semester. They weren't super comfortable being in breakout rooms yet. And I really like this because it was good for low tech students online. But I can see this very easily being done in breakout rooms with small groups of students, or even in person, as a whole class. Again, kind of thinking about where would this tool work best, right? So I love this. You have students roll, and then as they go through, here are my answer, or my questions, right? Son or daughter, singular, child. And the nice thing is it has the answers there. So if I did want to go over this, in separate rooms, I could do this, and the students would have the answer. So again, I put all this information into a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you how we get to that in a minute, but I want to just show you an example. So I was able to customize with like fun little pictures, aunt and uncle. Another thing, right? So reviewing particular grammar structures, just like anything you would do like in the classroom. I feel like a lot of textbooks have these board games. This is a great way to be able to do it online. Really good for review after you have done it, after you have taught the material. One thing that's really neat is you can actually put a picture in there. So if you have a picture of something, then students can describe it, they can talk about it. anything like that. So this is one example of kind of a whole class activity. One of the other things that I want to show you is another example of a more individual look. And so this time I am going to actually send this to you in the chat. Actually, now I'm going to send it to you in the chat. Okay, so now everyone should have this in the chat. This is a scavenger hunt, which kind of reminds me of an escape room. So go ahead and pull it up. And I'm going to give you guys just a couple minutes to play around with it. It's answering the questions, right? There are hints that you can find. So just take about 2 minutes, play around with it for a minute. So as you are playing with this, I want you to kind of be thinking about, well, how could I use this in my class? Like, what would be the benefit? Where am I doing something, similar to this that would be helpful? The reason I like this one is because you can, this is great for like a homework assignment. If you have a learning management system, you can post it on there and then students can do it on their own. You can send it in a message. You can have students do it in small groups. Again, you can do it in a classroom in person or online. Students get immediate feedback, right? Keys, but no lock. Enter, but you can't exit. I'm not sure what it is. Oh, look, do I want to show a hint? Yes, so the answer is keyboard, right? Oh, very satisfying. And so this is sort of that gamification, which research shows is actually really helpful for student learning, right? Motivation and getting them to learn. So this is an example of something I would do, like I said, either individually or in small groups, not necessarily as a whole class. It's something that is really helpful for those sort of things that you might want to review or give students like a little bit of a preview of a certain topic. So let's talk, can you reset the questions? Yes, okay, so this is where the magic of the spreadsheets comes in, because you're like, I don't need, that's a fun question, but I don't really need to talk about this. So let me show you an example with another one of my favorite uses of this word, which are this website, which is called manipulatives. So I'm going to show you the demo, and then we'll go through the instructions and the template. Okay, and so we'll do this together, and then I'll give you an opportunity to do it as well. So here's the demo, and you can see it's just these things that I can manipulate, right? I can put things into different order. If you notice what this is, we have the people from the office. Right down here, you can actually change things into grids or rows. There's a lot of fun backgrounds, Venn diagram. But you say, okay, that's great, but my students don't need to know about the characters from the office. So how do I actually create manipulatives on my own? I'm glad you asked. So at the top, anytime you look at the demo of an activity, at the top it says, want to make your own whatever the activity is. So that's where you'll go ahead and click on it. And then you've got all these instructions, which seems super overwhelming. but it's actually really great because you don't have to try to remember everything I'm telling you. I like this website. One of our instructors introduced it to me, and I thought, this is great. And it's so simple. And what I really appreciate is I don't need to have any special login, and my students don't need to have any special login, right? There's so much technology out here, it can become really overwhelming to remember, hey, student, I have another tool for you, and this time you need to set up a login and remember this and remember that. You don't have to worry about that here. So the first step for any of the activities that you do is to actually modify the template. So I'm going to go ahead and click modify or copy this template. And it's always going to give you a copy, and that's so that you can have it yourself. Again, this is if you have a Google account. If you don't, there is a way around it. So don't feel like this isn't for you. There's definitely a way around it. But the nice thing is it will create a Google Sheet for you that you can then use and save forever. So you can see I have all the information that was in the example manipulatives sheet, right? All the characters from The Office. So I'm thinking, instead of having the characters from The Office, I recently did with my level 1 students, we talked about transportation. So what I want to do is actually just delete all this because I don't need these folks' names. And I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to do transportation. And I'm going to say, okay, there's different kinds of transportation. I want to do verbs and nouns. So I'm going to say verb and noun. Since again, I'm ESL, thinking about, teaching my students this. I'm going to do red and green, because what I like about this is I can sort it with different colors. So those are the color options. And then I'm going to say you pilot a plane, you drive a car, you ride a bus. And then what I also want to do is, this is really neat, you can also create or include pictures. So earlier I was doing a little bit of Googling, looking for a picture of a train. So I can do, especially for maybe a lower level student, I can add some visual in there. So I'm going to copy the image address. And go back to my spreadsheet and just paste it right there. And I got to make sure that it ends with a JPEG or one other thing, but it'll say, yes. Can I use multimedia with my manipulatives? Yes, so it's got to end in certain endings. So when I am looking, for example, for bus, I've got to see, does it end with .jpeg? So that's just what I've been Googling. Copy the image address, not the actual image. And let's see. Okay, good, that ends there. So now I have a very basic start of a spreadsheet. Then it's got all sorts of different backgrounds. So if you had a specific background that you wanted your students to use, you could eliminate all the other ones, or you could get a whole different background. You can, choose which sort of display, if they're in order or random. You can even choose the font kind. There's not like a lot, but there's a few options. It's totally free. So now this is where it gets interesting, because instead of just creating it, you actually have this link here, and that is to the interactive part. So what you need to make sure to do is publish the spreadsheet. I don't understand exactly what the magic is, but basically, as you put in your information in the spreadsheet, the folks at Flippity are putting it into that beautiful looking interface. So I need to make sure to publish it so they can have access to my spreadsheet. So if you're feeling like, wait a second, I don't want this information to be out there, people would have to like guess at all the numbers that you have. So it's not like really anything sensitive, right? Obviously, you're not putting your students' social security numbers out there. So at the bottom, I'm going to see publish to the web, and I'm going to publish the entire document. Okay. I'm not going to use this. Okay. I'm going to use this one. And again, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity. I know it's really fast. So now you can see I have the material I have. So I have noun and verb. A bus, I'm going to switch it. Right, and then there's a couple of things you can do here. Is you can have your students do this on their own, get extra practice, right? They can work in small groups, they can organize things. I've used this to do a timeline. I've used this to sort, like here, nouns and verbs, and then use like Zoom annotation to then create a whole sentence, right? So I might then say, so if I have ride a bus, I say to my students, let's come up with a sentence together. He ride a bus. So then what do we need if we have he? We need to add an S and have a period at the end. And so I'm using my Zoom annotation to then add and create sentences there. Again, you need to know your students. Obviously, the first thing you need to do is model, right? You don't want to just say, this is what I have, let me send you the link. But the nice thing is I can actually copy this and send it to you guys. And now you have the manipulatives link and you can use that whenever you want. But say if you wanted to, change this, I wanted to add some more information. I wanted to have take a taxi, right? So I'm just going to refresh this. And now you can see I have take a taxi, which is nice, right? I don't have to wait for, I can just refresh it. So if you have something that you want to edit to and add, you can do it. It's pretty easy. One thing that I really like about this particular one, again, there's lots of activities, but there is a world background. So this is a really neat thing to do if you're talking about different countries or maybe where your students come from. You can say, oh, so-and-so is from Korea, so-and-so is from, Honduras, and you can get to know each other, do a little geography as well. A very fun thing to do right there. So again, considering the context, where do you want to do this with students? What sort of, where would this be beneficial? What tools do students need to have in order to use this? Do you want to do something as a whole class activity? Do you want to do something for students to do on their own? So thinking through that sort of things. Good question. So Janet asked about changing the background. So if you go back to this, the actual spreadsheet part, you can actually just delete the other parts of the background. So if you say, I'm going to clear that. So then now, when I refresh that, hang on a second. Sometimes I have a little technical issue. But now there should actually only be one option in the background. It's just being slow. But yeah, so it's kind of nice because you can change things for what you need it. So we looked at these two examples and the manipulatives. what I want to do now is go back to the Flippity homepage, and I'm going to show you guys an example, and I want you to kind of follow along with me. It's a little harder to do with this in the webinar format, but I think we can do it. We have pivoted very much. Mary says, free subscription. Yes, you don't need to even log in. It's lovely. If you have a Google account, you have access to everything. If you don't have a Google account, you can use this skip the spreadsheet. And then what I can do is I just put all my information right there. So for example, what I want to show you and what I want us to kind of get an opportunity to kind of practice together is a random name picker activity. So I put in here the names of a couple different students, and this is something, whether you have a Google account or not, all you need to do is say, I want to do the random name picker. So I click on it, and look at that. Now I can choose which students do I want to use. So I say, oh, it's Maria's turn. Maybe I want to do groups of 2. Maybe I want to do groups of 4. Maybe I want to do a seating chart, right? All of the names are there. It's super easy to do. But you know, with a name chart, like this is something that if I'm going to be with these students all semester, it might be helpful to actually have this as a template, saved as a template, so I can go back to it again and again. Because if I don't do it with a spreadsheet, I'm going to have to re-input those names every time. But if you have a Google account, then it makes it really easy to save it and then go back and use it later. So let's try to do a little bit of an, let's try to do it ourselves, okay? So going back to Flippity, to the main page, it's flippity.net. Why don't you give it a try by looking at the random name picker, okay? So if you want to minimize me, if you're fancy and you have 2 monitors, you can look at me on the one side. What you're going to do is you'll go to flippity.net and you're going to choose the random name picker. And we're going to go ahead and click on instructions. Okay, and then you will be on instructions. And again, just like when we looked at manipulatives, it'll say want to make your own blah, blah, blah. In this case, a random name picker. So then you will go ahead and make a copy of the template. And if you are not currently logged into, a Google account, you would have to log in. Okay, again, if you don't have it, then do a little practicing with the skip the spreadsheet option. So the skip the spreadsheet option is up here. So if you don't have a Google account, that's fine. But if you do, go ahead and make a copy of that. Okay. And then I always find it helpful to rename it, because otherwise you end up with a lot of copy of, and it can be really hard to figure out exactly what you were doing. So I'm going to do practice name picker. So what you want to do is go ahead and, for your particular students, for example. Okay. So how to sign up for an extension before you could access Flippity. So that just might be like your computer and maybe needed to update it. As far as accessing, I have always used Chrome. Google Chrome likes Google stuff, likes Google Chrome. It's not really through Google, but I found that tends to work better. As far as the actual spinner, you say, hey, where is it? Yeah, no problem, Jennifer. What I would suggest you do is maybe actually, if you're teaching a class, input the names of your students, and put it in there. Remember, let me go back to this. It's really helpful to start with the instructions. Yes, there you go. I wasn't clicking on the template. Yeah, you have to have a template first. So once you have the template, then you'll be able to edit it yourself. So I like to, if it's one I haven't used very often, I like to have the instructions up while I am going through the actually creating my own, right? So I can go back and forth and say, like, wait, why isn't this working? So for example, this has, right, don't forget to publish your spreadsheet. That has happened to me a lot where I say, why isn't this working? I've used this link and it's saying, I'll show you an example. It'll like, oh no, it's having some trouble. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Oh yeah, the spreadsheet wasn't published. That'll do it. And so making sure to publish that spreadsheet is going to be really helpful. And then you can share it, right? Good. Jamie, I'm glad that that works well. There's a lot of really cool uses for this, right? Again, thinking about not technology for the sake of technology, because there are so many tools out there, but thinking about what am I already doing, and where does that copy go? So it'll save automatically to your drive. So I'll show you guys. Look at my beautiful drive. So this was my class. It'll automatically just save here. So you can see copy of flippity.net manipulatives. But I usually end up putting it in a folder just to kind of organize it a little bit better, so that it's, easier to see, right? I have Community English 1B, Unit 7, Daily Activities. I had a one on count and non-count. And so if I wanted to go back and say, oh, I want to use this again, I can do it. I don't have to reinvent the wheel, which I really like that. So say if you're teaching the same class as you and another colleague, you can share the spreadsheet and they make their own copy, right? If you share the spreadsheet, they can make their own copy so that they can edit it and adjust it. Now, how do you share it with your students? That's a great question. So you're going to share the link. And so that's this one. So for example, the random name picker, I'm not necessarily going to share that with my students, though maybe you have a project and you want them to do something with it. But if I'm doing like the transportation one, for example, it says the link for your flippity.net manipulatives. That's the link you're going to share with your students. So at the bottom, there's always, a couple of tabs here, and there's always one that says get the link here. And that is the link that you share with your student, whether you end up texting it to them or posting it online or sending them an email. That link is really helpful. I have seen instructors where they say they make flashcards and then they send them to the students and post them online, and then they're able to do the work on their own. Some people I know have used this self-assessment quiz where it grades what students can do. I'll show you a demo there. This is, if you don't have a learning management system, right, this is something that might be helpful for you to do. This demo shows Lord of the Rings characters, so the demos are kind of fun. But you can see that it ends up, you can choose different things and it will grade them for you and say, this is your results. So again, some of these are really well designed for students to do on their own. Some of them are really good as a whole class. What you'll want to do is always share the link if you want a student to, see the finished project. if you want to share the back end, I always kind of think of like there's the student facing end, which is the shiny looking product, and then there's the teacher end, which is the spreadsheet. But as I have mentioned, and I will continue to mention, you don't have to use the spreadsheet, right? If I want to do something real quick, I think of a great idea 5 minutes before class or right after break, and I say, oh, you know what would go really well with this is if I, printed off a word search for my students. And there you go. I'll quick print it off right before class. I don't necessarily need to save it, but I can have it for my students to use in person. Yes. So there are, what I would like you guys to do is play around with this. So, take a couple of minutes and see what you can do. When I gave this presentation a while ago, and somebody, basically I just had somebody say, how did they use it? How could they use it? And they kind of played around with it. So I would love to hear, Beth mentioned so many uses. So why don't you guys put in the chat where, if you've used Flippity before, how have you used it? If you have, okay. And how could you use it in the future? So Eileen asked, how do I access it in Flippity, right? I have my name and you publish it, then you will actually see it in the get the link here. Okay, so that is where you're gonna find the link. Okay, so I didn't actually publish that one, so that's why I'll publish to the web. Publish. Okay, so now it's published, and then you say, how do I actually get to it? I'm going to use this link here. And yes, Betsy, I definitely agree. I know we try really hard to, not call on the same student over and over again, but this is great. So I find it really helpful as well. So if you're not seeing a link, you might need to go from the names to the bottom part where it says get the link. There's always, it's 2 tabs. So that might be where you're missing that out. Yeah, does anyone else think of a perfect, yay. Does anyone else have some examples of where you could or where you have used it? Good. This is great. I'm glad that's working for you guys. Oh, that's great. Okay, so using beginning, middle, end, same, choice board. Yes, I like this. I've actually used some of these for choice boards. So Jennifer, I didn't quite see the rest of this for the ones that say, online use. Yeah, so for the ones that are online, if you look again at the web main site, the e-learning recommendations, these are really great to use online, whether that's as a whole classroom instruction on Zoom or in small breakout rooms. So for example, this typing test is good. Oh, Janet, that's a great question. I don't know. Let's find out. Can you change it to a name instead of just a number? Yes, Donna, I totally agree. I hate the searching for so many different places. Haley has used it with middle schoolers. Oh, I love that. Like favorites. Yeah, that's awesome. I like that idea. That's a great way of kind of getting to know you. Yeah, Janet, I'm not sure. It doesn't look like you can change it from numbers. One thing that I do want to show you with the scavenger hunt is it can actually email. You can get an email response. So some of these you actually can get student feedback which is really kind of nice. So I definitely encourage you guys to play around with this. That is the best way to really feel comfortable. Yeah, because otherwise, it's really hard to just talk about it. I used the quiz show recently with my level 1 students as a review, and they really enjoyed it. I know there are a lot of PowerPoints for that you can edit, but I found this is easy because I just have to type. I don't have to worry about formatting. If you're not seeing the link to access like the actual from the spreadsheet, the issue might be that you're not clicking over to the tab where it says get the link here. Always go back to the instructions, which now I have too many things open, I can't find my instructions. But I found that having the instructions over are going to be really helpful. No, I did not create these templates. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I didn't create any of these. These are Flippity. And so, yeah, so it's really nice. Somebody created them, and they are kind of designed for teachers, but I don't know who the faces are behind that. As far as the link, Patricia, sometimes if you click just on the words, it does something weird like that. You want to hover over it. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so hover over it and make sure to click on that, because that sometimes can be an issue. Yeah, this is great. I love hearing the different ways that you can potentially use it. I saw one student do like different definitions and things like that. So yeah, definitely give it a try. Again, I think starting with what am I already planning on doing, and is there something in here that can help me? Just again, an actual another tool to help you. So as I am thinking about my lesson planning, I'm thinking, oh, I really want to do something interactive where students are asking and answering questions. And I can think, well, maybe I'll do a quiz show or a board game. That might be helpful. Or I want my students to, I really like Quizlet, but my students are having trouble with the whole logging and things. So I'm going to have them use the Flippity flashcards. And that way I can update stuff very easily, and I don't have to worry about having the pro account or something like that. So there's a lot of things you can do. Again, keeping in mind, who are my students? What can they do? Who am I? Is asking me where I want to share it. Patricia, you might be in the wrong place. So if you're doing share, I'm guessing that's where if you're doing share, that is not quite where you want to be. So you want to go from here to here. If you want to share the spreadsheet, that is where you would click the share button. But if you want to share it with your students, that's when you're going to want to go with get the link here. And yeah, so the nice thing is it does, it does work on their phone. I would say not the spreadsheet, but because the spreadsheet you do need, the actual Google Drive app kind of works better on that. But for like stuff like this, where you're showing them, you have the Flippity link, right? This is the Google Docs link versus the Flippity link. Then that is something that a student could do on their phone. So I always encourage you to check first, right? See, because there are some, like I've seen the manipulatives and it works on the phone fairly well, but you want to make sure that you have checked it before. Okay, so yeah, Patricia, you must just be having an issue with that. So make sure that it's published and kind of run through the gamut. There's always something odd that happens where you're like, wait, what's going on? Yeah, this is great. I hope this is helpful for you all. If I am by no means an expert. I'm just sharing a helpful tool that I have used. I do have the PowerPoint that I created that has these links in there that are helpful. That might be something that you can turn to if you want. But I do think that, again, the biggest thing is just kind of messing around with that, going back to the instructions for that, looking at the demo on your phone, if that's how your students are going to use it, considering the context in which your students are going to be using it, whether it's for you, whether it's for the students, and that. I think the PowerPoint will be sent out. Trying to remember. Is that
Katie,
correct, Ellen?
Katie, we can include the PowerPoint on the website when we.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, it is 12:50, and I know we could go to another 10 minutes. So if you have questions, you can feel free to stick around or share your great answers or great solutions, great ideas. But I know it is lunchtime, and so I'm very thankful that you all showed up at lunchtime. Hopefully you're eating as you're doing this. So thanks so much for attending. I hope this is helpful for you guys.
Thank you so much. What an incredible presentation. Something I was not familiar with, but just a perfect example of the free resources that are available to support instruction. So thank you all for joining us for Katie's noon session. I am going to type the feedback survey into the chat box. We would appreciate some feedback around the presentations of the Virtual Training Institute. Also, if you close out of your browser, you will likely get prompted to do the survey at that point too. No need to complete both, but if you will complete one, that really helps us to plan for the future. I'm also going to put the proof of participation link in here. But we do ask that you only complete one at the end of all of the sessions that you will attend this week. All right, so both of those links are in there.
I'm going to put my email address, if you have any questions. Again, I'm not an expert, but if you want to just share what you have done, like I love hearing that as well. So.
Thank you so much for that, Katie. One of the prime reasons that we have the Virtual Training Institute is this idea of peer sharing across programs and bringing out the best practices in instruction across Maryland. So thank you, and please be sure to reach out to Katie if you have feedback or excellent ways that you've used this in your classroom. Can't wait to hear all of the great success that you're having. All right, everyone, we've got a couple more presentations this afternoon and then another day and a half. So we will see you in a future session. Thank you, Katie. Excellent job.
Thanks, everyone.